Going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Khaditra, I see that you have us live streaming on YouTube right now. So let's go ahead and move forward with the roll call.
All right. And
Going to go ahead.
you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Scott Iden.
Here.
Barbara Marchioni.
Here.
Diane Holt.
Here.
Paula Rigsby.
Here.
Cheryl Hickman.
Here.
Currently, we do not have Michelle Durner, Dixie Newsom, or Nicholas Potter.
Correct. And I had expectations of council joining us today. Khaditra, have you heard anything to the contrary from Donna?
I have not. Normally she joins. So.
Yeah. All right.
Shoot her a text really quickly as we're moving through the agenda. I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Dixie.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Dixie has joined us at 12:01.
Hey, Dixie. And Donna's here.
Issues?
Okay, beg your pardon. Sorry, I didn't have my settings correct. Okay, so now I see. So now I see Miss Rasco. Good morning, or well, technically good afternoon. And Dixie, glad you're able to join us, Dixie. I'm sorry about that conflict.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, you're looking pretty good there in your green and yellow today. Like that tractor.
Yeah, that's the last one we had. So yeah.
Wow. Love it.
All right, guys. Well, our first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. I want to take a moment and ask the board, is there anything that the board is seeing on the agenda that we need to add to discussion or possibly and/or action items?
I don't see anything.
No.
Thanks, Barbara.
Got
Anyone else?
pre-board meeting call. Just adding 5F as in Frank for board email.
Okay. Which, yeah, okay.
And the removal of 7H, because we already took care of that last month, which is the approval of the Model Schools Conference reimbursement.
Got it. Removing 7H. All right. Then I have something I'd like to add for discussion items. I want to have, we need to discuss what's occurring this coming Friday and how we need to address this for our school. And if you guys may recall, I think Steve had maybe brought this up, but it may have been in another conversation. So apologies if we have not discussed it. But so this coming Friday on 11/12, Wake County is having I believe it's phrased as a mental health day, but I have concerns around the closures in Wake County public school system and the subsequent closures by care providers because of what Wake County is doing. And I have concerns over where that's going to leave us because we have a significant number of staff that have kids in the Wake County public school system, and they're going to be very impacted by the closure of the school system and or the closure of care providers, which is going to, my understanding is going to put us potentially very short on educator, teacher, staff coverage for Friday if we are open. Are you guys familiar with what's going on with Wake County this coming Friday?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not. I didn't know about this.
Well, we'll get to that in the discussion items, but I would like to add item 5G then to discuss the Wake County public school system closures this coming Friday on 11/12, so that we can address that for our school. So I believe then, do we have any other changes to the agenda? outside of what we've already noted? Okay,
No,
sounds
that
like,
was all we discussed.
oh, okay. All right, well, with that, could we get a motion for approval of the agenda as amended?
This is Diane. I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you much. Second?
This is Paula. I second the motion.
Thanks, Paula. Khadija, roll call real quick.
Scott,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Dixie. Nicholas,
Yes.
Oh, Nicholas has joined. Hey, good morning or good afternoon, Nick. Glad to have you with us.
Paula,
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
And Scott, for the record, Nick joined at 12:02.
12:02. I'm sure you have that recorded. Thank you. All right, with that, let's go ahead and move forward. I will make you guys aware now. I've rearranged my schedule today. I really only originally had 1 hour and was going to have to exit probably 5 minutes early at like 12:55. I've rearranged my schedule, but I will need to exit the meeting at 1:20 Eastern time this afternoon in order to facilitate. You guys know, you've heard me say it a million times. I still have a real job. And it goes on all day long on Tuesday. So just gotta want to make you guys aware that we need to go ahead and make sure that we're, if at all possible, covering everything in our meeting agenda today by 1:20 p.m. This afternoon Eastern time. So with that, Steve, let's move into management reports and see
Absolutely.
what kind of
Thank
good
you.
news is coming out of peak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Interim President and Directors. As you could see in the board packet, we are fully enrolled. As of the other day, we were fully enrolled and we're still fully enrolled. We actually have added a few more folks to our wait list for the current year than what was reported in the packet. So we have 1,458 students who still want to get into peak should we have any opening. So remaining fully occupied is not a concern of ours. We're a little bit closer than what I originally wrote. We're a little bit closer to 340 applications already put in for next year, which the open enrollment window closes February 28th, and then our lottery is in March. Thank you for approving
Steve,
our
one
remote
moment.
learning plan last
Steve,
month.
I'm sorry. Can everybody mute their line? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No thing. We still have no COVID infections school-wide, so we're really happy that our safety metrics and measures are helping to not only mitigate but eliminate the chance to date of any COVID infections spreading from anybody to anybody else. We did have a very successful fall sports season. We just finished up with boys and girls cross country, boys soccer, and girls volleyball. And we start winter sports next week. So I include the schedule for you if you ever want to come out to boys and girls basketball or cheer events. The schedule is linked in the board report for you. We continue to make the same progress towards charter goals as I reported last month. Even with student illness and parents being preventative and keeping kids home who may be COVID exposed or potentially sick, they keep them home in order to get a test, and we do excuse that absence. Our goal is 93% daily attendance, and we're still at 95.8. So even with the illnesses, colds, the regular flu, other illnesses that we've encountered, none of them have been COVID, and we're still above our goal for that. We still do continue to work with our exceptional children, our English language learners. They work with our scholars as well as the general education classroom teachers to support them. We also continue to implement what we have as a three-pronged trident approach of focusing on math and ELA progress monitoring with a weekly common assessment. We're looking at reading fluency as a main driver of education this year, and also our staff culture. We've done a couple outings, one each month to date since we opened. And we will be meeting with some staff members next week to prepare and designate a date for the holiday celebration function that we do each year that all of you are certainly invited to, and we'll hope you'll be able to join us. We did hire a new EC paraprofessional. He started yesterday. because we had additional exceptional children that joined our community. So we qualified for an additional para. And we have been added an additional English language teacher to partner with Miss Ambrosius. So we're looking for that person now. And we do have one candidate that we seek your approval today to fill the open position. We're still not doing field trips or clubs. And that's where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Team, any questions for Mr. Pond on the principal report? Okay, not hearing any. Steve, let's move on to, and I think it's page, I believe it starts page 4 of the PDF.
Yes,
Page 6 of the packet.
Yes, the demographics of the school continue to evolve and change. The last time we did a survey was the November before the COVID pandemic, and we had 39 countries of origin represented among our students. Either the students or the parents were born elsewhere and are here as part of our family. 25 languages spoken, and as you can see, our 3-year trend, we continue to become more diverse, which we love as a community. You can see the metrics and the breakdowns there. We have students representing 4 different counties this year based on their addresses. We had one additional county last year, Lee County, but it's now become Chatham, Durham, Harnett, and Wake County are represented, with the most students coming from Wake. And as I mentioned in my own report, there's another attendance enrollment report that was run 10 days earlier. So you can see then that we had been and still are at our enrollment goal, which we did meet NHA's outstanding enrollment goal, which at the time of that measure on our 20th day, we were actually 762. So we met that outstanding enrollment that we were looking at as well. We're also looking at the attrition rate, which you can see on page 5 of the printout or page 7 of the packet. The attrition is the people who are leaving us, and what we're finding in the small percentage of people who have left us is that those folks are leaving largely because they kept their seat in the hope that we would become a virtual school again, as we had last year, or would add a concurrent virtual academy. But we did not, because we felt like we needed to give the highest quality instruction and educational experience for our children as possible. And with the safety measures we had already put in place and those that were coming, such as the 12 and up vaccinations and the 5 through 11-year-old vaccinations, which are projected to start within a week. We are open in fully staffed with 100% of our students in person. So the large number or small number of people who have actually left, the majority of those have either moved for a job relocation, as some of our families and parents lost jobs or needed to change jobs during the pandemic, while others are leaving because we don't have a virtual option. And many did sign up for enrollment in the county while hedging their bets that we would add a virtual. And when we didn't, they didn't feel comfortable coming back, and they just kept their enrollment in Wake County and transferred right over there. So that's where we are on the attrition. We're very satisfied with the rate. And then the chronic absenteeism on the bottom, that is the attendance rate and the chronic absenteeism rates. Those are students who are absent at least 10% of the days attended. We do track and monitor each of those. We contact parents. A couple of them, in all honesty, have been families who have traveled or gone on vacation and different things that are not excused absences, but others are a child who has gotten sick a couple of times, whether it's a virus or some other bug, and they do track even excused absences in them. So we closely monitor them. We follow up with parents in writing and by phone call or email as well. We do follow up, and we find out sometimes in conjunction with our social worker, Ms. Furby, on how to get them in schools, especially if it was parents who were expecting to have the flexibility of a virtual schedule again, where we require that they be in person. And if there are no questions about that, I'm prepared to move on to the goal report, Scott.
Sorry, I keep having to remember to unmute myself. Questions, board?
And as always, feel free to email anything that comes up. I'm happy to share with you.
So
Well, Scott, with
Steve,
your permission, I can move ahead.
well, I do have one question.
Sure.
So really the impact we're seeing here with attrition would be that withdrawn column. And I'm
Yes.
seeing an aggregate of 20.
20 out of 761, yes.
Right. Okay.
And so that's by no means a large number. That's actually surprisingly low for what we anticipated. Knowing that we had many, many families that wanted virtual and were choosing to dually enroll because we start 2 days earlier than the county. So some families kept their seats here. And then once they knew we were open and not offering the virtual, they then started at their Wake County school the Monday after we opened on a Thursday. And so that's where our replacement of seats came. And because we have 1,458 seats or students on the wait list, we immediately fill them as soon as somebody withdraws.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me. And before we move on, just last chance, second chance, any questions from the directors, from the board? All right, let's move on towards our progress report.
Awesome.
Our
And then
charter.
looking at our charter contract goals, we are authorized, as you all know, by the North Carolina State Board of Education, the Department of Public Instruction. We look at the different renewal, 3-year renewal of our goals. As you can see, we met every goal or they were not applicable. The ones that were not applicable are related to the end of year test score performance, which, as you may recall, our students took, but they did not count in the eyes of the state. And so thus they were not reported out in conjunction with the state school performance model. But as we shared last month, and I included in my principal report, we were rated the 32nd best elementary school, the 23rd best middle school, and the number 6 district of all charter schools and school systems in the state because of the performance that is available to be reviewed about our end of grade testing. It just does not count in the eyes of the state. The only metric that we did not meet the minimum goal was related to kindergarten and first grade students who would score cumulatively at the 65th percentile in reading and math with the beginning to end of year growth. And the thing that we attribute that to, because we have met it before, even when it was 2019-20 and then 2020-21, we are meeting that by the end of the year for the majority of our students. We do have a high number of students that do come from other nations and speak other languages. We're over 100 students now that English is not their first language. And we have at least a dozen more who qualified for English support, but whose parents did not want them to receive English support at school. So we do continue to work with and grow our students, but cumulatively, we did not reach the 65th percentile. And we do attribute that to so many students learning at home virtually. And some students, in all honesty, not participating in that, even though they were enrolled as students. They might go on and do some of the work that we assigned, but they didn't participate in the live classes with fidelity and frequency. So that is a growth area for us, continuing because we don't know the environment in which our students had preschool or daycare, or if they did at all. So in kindergarten, they come to us and we have to determine their level of knowledge and their level of skill in reading and math and focus on growing them to the highest level of achievement that we can. And the same as first grade, because our first graders last year were kindergartners the year before, and they had their year cut off by the pandemic, and we switched directly to virtual. And many of them went into daycares or other settings where they were supervised in another environment, and they did not have the ability to jump on and work live with their teachers at home. So that is our growth area and our growth target, is to continue to enhance and improve the development. But we do focus on growth, as I've shared before, as our driver, not just on a percentile. We feel like that percentile measurement, that goal can be reached as long as we're targeting the growth of every scholar to get them as high as they can be. So in the years ahead and after the pandemic, we hope to continue to reach that every year. Oh, you're muted, Scott.
There we go again. Got to remember to unmute.
Always got you.
Deetra will get me if I don't stay muted. Sorry, board, any questions regarding our contract goals here? Any questions for Steve? All righty. Well,
Thank you so
thank you,
much.
Mr. Pond.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, let's move forward into the last item in our management reports, the board fund report. And Khaditra, I see you're pulling that up. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so the board fund report is as of October 21st, 2021. You'll see based upon your last regular meeting in October that your rollovers have been included in this report. And it's $42,586.66 that you have available to spend. Does anyone have any questions thus far about the available to spend? And that's money that you have not yet allocated to any line item. All right.
Any questions, team? And Khaditra, I looked it over. I didn't see anything that was out of the ordinary, or anything that I have questions on. So, all
Sounds
right.
good.
All right, thank you, Khaditra. All right, that concludes everything that we have in the agenda for management reports. So we'll move on to section 5, the discussion items. First item is 5A, identifying potential board members. And again, just want to say, welcome to our newest board member. Nice to have you here, Cheryl. And we are most
Thank
certainly
you.
grateful for
Welcome.
your volunteer service.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to this. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we are glad you have that attitude, because we'll engage you as much as you want to be engaged. So,
I don't doubt that.
but in identifying any potential board members to the rest of the team, any thoughts, ideas, anybody that you know of that we may want to look at as a potential board member or expanding our board of directors? Okay, doesn't sound like it right now. And I want to say, I seem to recall reading it in the bylaws, or perhaps it was just guidance, but I want to say that guidance, and Donna, maybe you can help with this. I want to say that it recommended limiting a board to, for some reason, the number 9 is in my head. 9 directors, including officers, or less. And so at this point, we've achieved an 8-member board. And I guess I just want to make sure the board's aware of that, and that I've got a grip on that. And Khaditra, maybe you know, I want to say that there was some guidance stating, or maybe even the bylaws, but perhaps not the bylaws, maybe it was just guidance from NHA, potentially limiting that number of board of directors.
NHA wouldn't have anything to do with the number of board of directors that you have. That information would be referenced in your bylaws. I would have to pull that up to see exactly what it is. Typically, I know it's between 5 and 9 is what's typically stated in the bylaws, but I'm not sure for peak individually, unless Donna, if you know right off. I know you have a lot of schools.
I do not know right off, but I would agree with you that generally it's somewhere between 5 and 9. DPI, the Office of Charter Schools in particular, often recommends a minimum number, because it's possible to have too few a number of board members, and you guys are fine with that. I think they don't want to see less than 5, perhaps. Beyond that, it's completely up to you. You do need to be mindful of what's currently in your bylaws, although you can always amend your bylaws if you ever wanted more. But I think you guys are probably in good shape. I have boards that actually operate more than one school. And in those situations, those boards find themselves perhaps needing more board members. But I would think you're fine where you are right now.
Okay, thank you, guys. And I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole there. I just kind of wanted to get a mental picture of that, and where we are compared to with the guidance or the bylaws stating a specific number. But yeah, Khaditra, that number 9 sticks in my head for some reason. But and I believe I've already asked this question, forgive me. Does anyone have any person or any prospect to share as a potential board member? I think it was no, but just double checking before we move on. And sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to, did I interrupt somebody? Sorry.
No, this was Dick that was saying, no, I don't have anyone to recommend at this time.
All right, thank you, Dixie. All right, with that, we will move on from 5A and we will move on to 5B, the 2020-2021 audit report. Donna, thank you for your response yesterday. I had intended to get that message out Friday, but we were leaving town. And once I was on the road, I had that moment where I remembered I did not reach out to Donna. So thank you for your response. And Donna, you had said yesterday in that response, overall, the audit report looks fine, that you shared some concerns about the language specifically as quote unquote, as part of the consideration received under the agreement or services agreement. NHA also provides a facility in which the academy operates. You referenced page 3 and 14. Continued on, the facility is not part of the consideration under the services agreement. Rather, there's a separate lease for the facility. You had commented that you raised this issue last year and thought it was corrected. And then you had referenced page 14 and 16 with some incorrect statutory references. Khaditra, thank you for following up on that email and responding to that. It makes me believe that we are in a are we in a spot where we can cover this audit report in this meeting? Or because I don't think we have an action item on the audit report, do we? Other than we just have discussion.
Yes, there's no action taken on the audit report. However, Donna, do you want to tell me exactly? I know Scott just said page 3, so I pulled it up. But if you wanted me to like highlight it for the other board members, I'm more than willing to do that.
Scott, if it's okay, that may be helpful, and I'll try to make this brief. Yeah, on page 3, right before the table, there's a sentence that begins as part of the consideration received. Right about.
Okay.
Yep, there you go. There you go.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm there.
So this is, again, overall, the audit report looks fine. I'm not an auditor, so certainly I defer to them for the financial analysis and whatnot, although I did review it and it seems appropriate. There are a couple of references where there are descriptions of the board, the school, how you operate that I have concerns about as not being exactly quite consistent with charter school statute and whatnot. I had a little bit of extra concern because these are items that I all mentioned last year. And again, Khaditra was able to pull up my email from last year, and I appreciate that. And I understand it's being forwarded to the auditors. So they'll have that complete reminder. But what I would point out to the board is in this general description, there's this notion that you have a services agreement with NHA, which you do. But then it says as a part of the consideration received under that agreement, NHA provides the facility. I've suggested that that's inaccurate because you actually have a separate lease for the facility and you pay for that. So the provision of the facility is not consideration as a part of your services agreement. Might be a little bit of a technicality, but I'm going to suggest it's a fairly important one. My recollection is that last year when we brought this up, they were fine with revising that to reflect that you actually have a services agreement and you have a separate lease. And that language appears in a couple of other places as well. But again, they were receptive to that feedback last year and we're going to make the changes. And then in like fashion, there are just a couple of places where they use the old references to specific provisions of the charter school statute. Right there, you'll see, and I mean, this is nitpicky, but again, important. 115C 238.29B is no longer the right numbering system. There's a new numbering system, but we've given them that. So that was my primary input on the audit, was to make those kind of corrections consistent with the same corrections we made last year. So
Don, are we able to use that communication that you had sent Khaditra last year? I'm assuming there might be some page numeration changes or something, but with respect to what you called out,
yes.
we're able to utilize that.
Yes.
to perfect this document is what I would say. And these may be minor nuances, but that's what the law is about, right?
Yeah. So I would recommend if Khadija can follow up, and I think she volunteered that that's what she would do, to forward the same emails last year. And as always, welcome for them to just give me a buzz. I think I actually chatted with the auditors last year, had good conversation. So if there's something they need to follow up with me on, I'm happy to do that. And Scott, I'll just go on and say that there is no action item for the board under the audit. The auditors are supposed to present it to you so that you as the board has the opportunity to review it, and that will be documented in your minutes. And so that takes care of your task for the audit.
And Donna, just
Then
for
my-
clarification, the statute on page 16, is it under the funding? Because that's the only place I'm seeing statutory reference.
I think it's on 2 pages. Yeah, there are references on the next page too, on 14 and 16.
Okay. Is it the 115C 238?
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Mhm. And all of those were included in my email from last year.
gotcha. Okay, perfect.
So those still apply, no changes to the email from last year.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Well, so it sounds like from an actionable standpoint, Khadija, you're going to take care of making sure that the audit report is updated
Correct.
appropriately and according to council's guidance. And I believe my suggestion would be, and board, please speak up, but my suggestion would be is that we go ahead and have the amended audit report as part of the December meeting packet, just so that we, as a board, we all have the final version fully corrected, that we review it, and that we can come back with any questions, concerns, or otherwise in the December meeting. Any disagreement there?
Scott, may I just mention that, and it may be in the materials from the auditor, the audit is due by October 31st with a standard courtesy extension through the end of November. So my understanding is your auditor will go ahead and submit your audit, if they haven't already, to DPI no later than November 30th, which I think is appropriate now that you've seen it.
And I had this information for another school. The audits were submitted on October 29th because October 31st was a holiday, and well, it was a weekend, excuse me. So it has been submitted.
Okay, but the premise of that is mainly to disclose the financial audit information, the numbers.
Are you asking or are you telling us, Scott?
Asking.
I do not have I'm assuming so. I do not, or to let DPI know that the audit has been complete and submitted is what I would think. But I can definitely follow up with the audit manager. I was speaking to her this morning, so I'll follow up.
Well, I guess not my concern, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on the fact that the audit report has already been submitted. So Donna, the changes that we're proposing that mimic or mirror last year's changes are not going to, and if you guys can, let's go ahead and mute if you're not actively speaking, just in case, getting some feedback. But sorry, Donna, the changes that we're proposing here do not materially change the audit report, or do they?
They do not materially change the financial reporting that is a part of the audit report.
Big Stick, can you mute your line?
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.
It's okay.
So they do not materially change the financial information in the audit report. I mean, it does give me some concern because again, it's, you know, the statement that the lease's consideration under the services agreement, I believe, is not accurate. There are a couple other items that are arguably minor. Under the law, you guys are a public charter school, not a North Carolina public school academy. That was one of the other items that I mentioned last year. And certainly my preference is that the statutory references be updated. The 238 references are from a good number of years ago. And I mean, again, I've had good conversations with these auditors. I think it's Plant Moran, and I have no reason to suggest that they don't do a perfectly fine job. But my preference certainly is that those kinds of items in your audit report be accurate. And I guess I will make mention of the fact that this is the first year, you may recall, that you're submitting your audit to DPI. DPI always has your audit, gets your audit eventually, but up until this year, it's been the requirement that the audit be submitted to the local government commission.
That's
that was
right, yeah.
changed. That was changed. So this is the first year that it's going directly to DPI. And I mean, I'm just a fan of you submitting things to your authorizer, which is DPI, that are certainly as accurate and complete as we can make them. But again, I would defer to the auditors. This is the work they do. But just kind of say, heads up, please, let's get those things correct.
Thanks, Donna. And Donna,
And
I
I'll
would,
take care of it.
yeah, it was so Khaditra, is there any history of, or should we make sure that perhaps an amended report? I mean, I get where Donna's coming from, and I have to agree with having the accuracy in there in all aspects, not just the financial, audit information of the numbers. How did this play out last year? I don't recall. We needed changes. Were the changes made before it got submitted to DPI or to LGC? Or in this case, do we need to have an action item to, or a takeaway here to amend the audit report as council has suggested or directed, and then resubmit this? Is there a premise or a preface for resubmitting this? I mean, have we done this in the past?
Well, I know last year, like Donna was saying, we were kind of working directly with the auditors and having that communication. Now, after everything was communicated, I can honestly say I do not, I'm sure it went to NHA's audit team, but as far as the process after that, I'm not sure of exactly what it was, but I'm more than willing to dig into it and see to ensure that the changes that you guys want to the audit will be reflective in the actual final audit that DPI receives. And I know typically the word draft is included. So I need to look and see, does it say draft on this one? I'm not seeing it, but I know in the past draft has always been included, which lets you know that
That's the state of the document, yeah.
Right. So I'll definitely, all I can do is kind of look into it and follow up with you guys, but those are great questions that I will definitely look into.
And I thank you for that. And yeah, as a takeaway bullet point, that's really a question I think we would have as a board is it necessary, and do we need to resubmit the audit report or have our vendor resubmit the audit report for the sake of accuracy? So yeah, if you can do that as a takeaway, and then we'll address that as soon as we have an answer.
Okay.
To the board team, do we have any questions around the audit report? It is a massive amount of information. I will admit I have not read through every single line by line item. I really did more of a summary review of it. But overall, I was obviously pleased with our outcome, that we had no inconsistencies. We have no issues. I don't know what the proper terminology is. I know it's in the packet, but Plant Moran gave us a clean bill of health. So just giving the board a chance though. Any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts? All right, if not, then I think we've completed our discussion on 5B. Let's move on to 5C, annual board development and evaluation. This is page 51, I think, in the packet. sorry, page 52 in the packet and page 50 of the PDF in the packet. Khaditra?
Now, this is always, doesn't it feel like we just did this? But pretty much what this is, it's always the initial time period in which we start discussing the annual board development and evaluation tasks. So of course, each year you guys do a self-evaluation as board members, and then you also do an evaluation of NHA's performance. And in addition to that, you work with the Director of School Quality, who this year will be Doug Hauer, to ensure that you do an evaluation of your principal. So all of that will be done between now and June 30, well, between December and June 30 of 2022. And in addition to that, it's just kind of the board thinking of different professional development opportunities that they may want to be involved in. If I'm not mistaken, I think, Steve, don't you always, when you do your board fund request, always kind of put a little money to the side? So if the board wants an opportunity to do board development, they have the funds to do so.
Yes,
So-
there were always several $1,000s for that.
So just kind of, digging into that to see what you guys would like to do. So like I said before, this is just the initial part of the conversation. One thing that I'm kind of cautioning boards on this year that it seems like we got caught in last year was the fact that there were multiple evaluations due at one time. So for instance, last year you all did Steve's evaluation via a Google form. And instead of the DXQ actually coming to the meeting and discussing. And in addition to that, you also had your board, the board evaluation that NHA does for all board members as well. So it looked like you guys had about 3 or 4 evaluations going on at one time. So what I would like to caution you to do is actually starting in December, start thinking about flushing this out so that you do not have an evaluation, 3 or 4 evaluations due at one time. You can kind of just do them on a month-to-month basis until you get to maybe the May timeframe. How does that sound?
Yes.
Much better. Agree with that.
And
So what
I want, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I was
Sorry.
going to say, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to Doug and kind of see what he has in mind this coming school year for the principal evaluation, so I can report that information back to you guys in December. So maybe at the start of the year, you can start thinking about what month you either want him to come in or send a survey, however he's going to do it. And then also your board self-evaluation, I can create the Google link like I did last year, and you guys can do that with a due date. And then for your evaluation of NHA, you can also do that via Google link, or we can do it in a meeting. It depends on how you would like it done. I'm done, Scott.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Khaditra.
Mhm.
I will encourage you guys well, 2 things. First, I'll confess that courses that I've looked at that you can take online that are free, I have not forced myself to schedule the time to go ahead and complete those courses for myself. I would like to encourage you guys, as your schedule allows, as you can fit it in. There's a ton of educational information or training and courses that are available over the internet that don't cost anything. So that's something that I would encourage you guys to look into. All right, so that concludes annual.
This
Oh,
is
sorry, go
Diane. Can I ask a quick question, Khadija?
course.
The survey that's due on Friday that you sent out, that is done individually, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And that's the ESSER funds, the ESSER
Yes.
collaboration survey. So it's for all stakeholders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Khaditra, when did that email go out?
I sent that probably Friday. No, yesterday. I
Yes.
sent it November 1st.
I did not see that.
Yeah,
You didn't see it? Okay, I can resend. What's that?
Yeah, thanks, Khaditra, because I'm not seeing that in my peak folder.
Okay. Did anyone else not get it? Okay,
You said yesterday, so 11/1.
it's okay. I'll resend.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Diane.
Sure. I wanted to
Okay.
be sure I understood that.
Do you understand what the request is?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
need That. Mhm.
And as we're talking about the annual board development and evaluation piece, I also wanted to let you guys know that I will also be sending the information from the board symposium. It's been uploaded on the board portal, but it's those sessions that they had last week. They also recorded them. And there's a PDF as well for each session. So I'll make sure that you all have that information just in case you didn't see it on the portal.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so let's move on to 5D, first quarter financial statements. Khaditra, I don't know if you had any comments that you wanted to share with the board on this. I will say before that I've looked over the quarterly statements. There was nothing contained in the packet that stood out and or caused me to have questions, as far as a percentage of the totals and things like that. The numbers are in line and within expectations of what I expected to see and consistent with prior years, as far as where we are when we get into a third quarter reporting period. But Khaditra, I wanted to see if you had any information or comments to share on that, and or if the board has any questions around, I keep saying third quarter, sorry.
First quarter.
I got so much work on my brain anyway. Yes, first quarter financial statements.
No, I don't. Since this is the first quarter, I kind of just take the numbers as they are, because I know in a lot of cases things are front loaded as well. So sometimes when a number is heavier, it's because it had to be, even front loaded before the money even started flowing in. So what I like to pay close attention to is especially around that time when you guys get the amended budget and, start looking at various numbers and things like that to make sure that they are on trend. So probably in like the January timeframe, I think that's the time period where you kind of start seeing the real flow of the numbers. So at this point, I don't have any.
I'd agree with that. But before we move on from this discussion item, team, any questions around first quarter financial statements?
Good to go.
All righty, well, let's move on then. That concludes 5D. 5E, I think we may need to table. Last I heard, the amended, oh gosh, not services, or Donna, is that the term?
Revised management agreement?
Management agreement. That's where sorry, I was blue screening there for just a second. I think we are still in a draft state on the proposed management agreement, correct?
Correct. Donna, that was you received something I didn't get.
I was just going to say that's my understanding, and I'm not sure if Khaditra has any more of a report. I would have expected to have had it quite some time ago, as I believe I reported to the board in your last meeting. My colleague Shantae Martin, who is the attorney down in Charlotte and who works with a couple of the NHA schools down there, she and I have certainly, tried to coordinate. She has had more recent communication with the NHA attorney than I have, but it's the same thing as I last had. They're still working on it, and we've tried to alert them to the upcoming board meetings, both yours and the board meetings for your sister NHA schools that we work with, and we've not heard anything. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I do have a question though, and Khaditra, if you'll forgive me, I didn't have a chance to talk to you later. I noticed that the title, NHA's title for this project has changed from NHA refinance to proposed sale of school facilities. I'm not sure if there's any meaning behind that. It's, from my perspective, it's quite a different title and suggests some meaning. Is there anything that can be shared about that?
Yeah, I was informed that's because that is what the, the transaction is pretty much, that's the purpose of the overall transaction is the sale of the building. So that is what the name was proposed to be, I guess, changed to, or just now referred to as. So that is the name that has been placed on the agendas for the transaction moving forward. Your eyes tell me that there's something that you're going to say something, Donna. What's going on?
Well, I mean, I just draw that to the board's attention for a couple of reasons. One, to know that from my understanding and our perspective, it's the same information that the board is looking at. And at least I know in another setting, there's some concern that that is a strikingly different title. And for the public, it might be of concern to folks who, again, don't know the underlying transaction and everything's going on. You see proposed sale of school facilities and you go, wait a minute, what's happening? what's going on? So just something to think about. And like I said, from my perspective, I just want to know, is there something else that's changed that I don't know about? For either title, there are some parts of this that the board kind of doesn't have anything to do with, quite frankly. And there are pieces that the board does have something to do with. So for example, the management agreement is one of the critical pieces, as I've described to the board before. And as we look at the whole package of documents, some parts of this have a role for the board, some parts don't. And arguably the sale of a school facility is more of an NHA transaction than a board transaction. But anyway, just wanted to, acknowledge that that's different and try to get some clarity around whether that means anything or not.
Okay. In my understanding, everything is still the same versus the name of the transaction. So
Khaditra, is that supposed to impact? I mean, are we still looking at a document that is going to be essentially titled as a management agreement? Or is it going to be, I mean, that's still the document that we're going to review as a board and or, approve or disapprove as a board. It is still a revised management agreement.
mm-hmm.
Scott,
Yes, the documents will not change.
I'm sorry, I apologize. There are actually multiple documents, and that's why that's another reason here.
It's the lease and the management agreement, correct?
I'm sorry?
The lease and the management agreement, correct?
Well,
and then the board has to do a resolution.
Well, there's the revised lease, there's the revised management agreement, and there's a resolution. And there are aspects of the resolution that speak to multiple parts of this overall transaction, which had previously been labeled NHA's refinance. And I don't want to belabor the point. It's just that, again, both titles, NHA refinance and proposed sale of school facilities, are titles that might, really catch someone's attention and cause questions and whatnot. So I just want to pay attention to that.
So Don, are you recommending anything from the legal representation standpoint, or this is just more of a level setting because I agree with you, as perhaps an uninformed parent, if I saw a proposed sale of school facilities, I'd be like, what? You're selling the school? What does that mean for my kid? I mean, so I understand, and I'm a firm believer, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, you should call it a duck. But so Khaditra, I don't know how much you can dig into that, and quite frankly, I don't know if NHA is going to be open to renaming any of these documents for a particular school.
I'm sorry, can I interject there?
Yeah.
The individual transaction documents are labeled what they are, but I just really want to emphasize this agenda is the board's agenda. So you decide what goes on your agenda.
What goes on our agenda, you mean, or on the documents, you mean?
No, no, no. What
On
goes
the
on your
agenda.
agenda is the board's decision.
You're talking about nomenclature used.
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, so as far as a takeaway on that, we still have revisions
Mhm.
to the actual documents that we need to see that completed revision, right? So we need to bring that to the December meeting.
Correct.
So could I, back to what Donna just said, like on 5E of our agenda, you're saying, Donna, where it says proposed sale of school facilities, that terminology is, because this is our board meeting, it doesn't have to say that? Is that what you were
Correct.
saying?
That's
Okay.
That's what she's saying. Mhm.
Thanks, Diane. In the interest of time, let's go ahead and move forward with our added items. 5F, the board email. Steve, why don't you give us a 30-second commercial on what you did?
Yes, because I noticed online that Linda Reynolds' email was still online, created a new Google-based Gmail account for you all and sent it to Scott with a password that, with your approval and consensus today, he can use, or you all can use, to respond to or send replies to people that may email the board, as they may need to email something to you that might not be appropriate for me, and certainly isn't appropriate to go to Linda anymore.
Steve, could you tell them what the email is?
1 second, let me just pull it up real quick. It is, or would be, peakcharterboard@gmail.com. And once whoever is managing that logs in, please change the password so it isn't anything that I have any access to.
And I know I've got that in here, Steve.
I just sent it
So
to you again, so it's at
No,
the
I've
top
got
of the
it. I've
box.
got it flagged. I've got it flagged
Okay,
in here. So board, I'll socialize that out to the board. Forward Steve's email. I think it's appropriate that we have that board email as a collective board email address or destination rather than individuals. I would think that we need to have that open and accessible to, in other words, password known by all board members,
For sure.
so that we all have the opportunity to be able to, view content in that email inbox. So I don't think there's really any action we need to take on that other than socializing this out to the board and allowing for any board conversation on it. So any questions or concerns on taking that approach?
Nope.
Okay,
Scott, I
doesn't
think
seem
it'd be a
so.
worthy board discussion of who will manage that account and report out on it.
Well, that was just running through my mind, and my understanding, under a normal officer structure, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, sorry, Barbara, that would be a function that would normally be attributed to the secretary. And I don't mean that in any chauvinistic, derogatory way. It's just a
No.
word.
Okay, I'll talk with Cathedral about it and figure out how to do it, what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, thank you, Barbara.
Okay, sure.
You're a fine, fine secretary. Yeah, they'll probably stop using that word one day because it's, we are in the cancel culture. Anyway, thank you, Barbara. I know, well, not me either, right? If I don't like it, I don't watch it. It's
That's
pretty
right.
simple. All right, so thank you. So that concludes 5F. The item I mentioned was 5G. And Steve, I'm going to ask you to just reiterate, give us an elevator speech version
Yes.
of what's
And-
occurring in Wake County and how that's going to impact our school.
Sure. And if you saw me looking down, I was taking notes and on the staff roster and looking through, because you may have seen or may not have seen that several weeks ago, Wake County Schools announced that they were shutting down. First, it was in conjunction of honoring Veterans Day, which is the day before, and all schools are closed on Thursday, November 11th. And then they later added it as a mental health break day, which, as you may have heard, several of the local colleges are doing and other counties and districts are doing to close on Friday, November 12th. The way that impacts us is unfortunately that because Wake County Schools closes and many of the daycares do mirror what the county district does, that will leave us about 12 teachers short that day. And I've gone through just on my own notes, not to violate anybody's family privacy, but we have 7 folks here that have either toddlers or infants. Then we have another 5 that have younger children that either don't go here or they are the guardian or caregiver for a younger child that does not go here. So that means we would be without about 12 teachers that day due to the need to provide care for their own children so they could come to work. Because of the action and the domino chain caused by Wake closing and then the majority of the daycares that we've learned about. Additionally, we have families that have already said, well, I'm not coming because we're closed Thursday and you're going to make us come back on Friday and then have a weekend. So I don't know the percentage that would come or not come. My big concern after hearing and mirroring your concern, Scott, would be how many classrooms we would not be able to fill. And 12 is about a third of our classrooms and would leave us theoretically not able to function because, as I mentioned before, with the COVID safety measures that we are strongly adhering to with Fidelity, we are not combining any classes. We're not shuffling students from one class to another. We do have about 10 people that are on our substitute availability list that have signed up, but in reality, only 3 of them can work a full-time sub position where they can come in with regularity and another can do that half days. So we would be, even if we had all 3.5 of those sub positions filled, and I say half because she can work part days, we would be 8.5 staff members down in theory if all those people could not work on the 12th due to the school system closing and then many of the daycares that our staff members have already told us, hey, our daycares are closing. And so we would have sharing Scott's concern about being able to be open that day, because I don't want to endanger people by combining 2 classes into one and having 50 children in a classroom. But our substitute teachers are not even available. And we got 2 more today. And we don't know, many of the subs on our roster also sub at other schools. And so they will come in if they're available when we call, but there are also some on our roster that have maybe worked once or not at all since the year opened. So mirroring Scott's concern, I just went through our staff roster and made that list. And we would be about 12 faculty members down, 12 teachers down. And that doesn't even include part-time folks or our paraprofessionals. I didn't even look at them. I didn't look at our food service staff to know who may be here or not. But because they're each in a classroom, that would be about a third down. We have 28 homerooms, but that does also include our English language teachers, special education, and our specialists in that 12 teachers that would not be able to be here. So I now have great concern after hearing Scott and thinking about it, that about our ability to even open and function on that day because of the family needs of our teachers.
Thanks, Steve. So board,
I suggest we close.
I like a
It's-
woman of
it's-
action.
It's just, it's a no-brainer at this point.
Right. And that, and that's really my concern is, what does Steve, our administrator, and our teachers do with this massive overcapacity of students versus available educators, and you guys know the size of the rooms in our school.
It
I
puts,
mean, it's-
it puts Steve and his staff and the students in danger.
Mhm. And I could not ethically or morally tell our parents we're going to combine 2 classrooms into 1 or 3 into 2, because that to me is just, especially during a pandemic, is so horrible of an idea to even stomach. And our substitute availability has been a struggle. 2 of our deans are subbing today. Yesterday, 2 and I spent the day subbing, just because we have folks that can't come in and people who have life things, whether they have a doctor's appointment, their children have an appointment. So we're making do, but to stomach a 12 teacher outage at once would be an unfathomable thought. And please know too, that although we're required to go 1,025 instructional hours or have 1,025 instructional hours, we have and have missed no time 1,114. So we have almost 100 instructional hours more in our school calendar, and that's built in intentionally. So we would not be losing or going below the required minimum if your suggestion became reality. But it is very stressful for me right now to think about and process that as we have been talking about it, and I've been doing sticky note math.
More pandemic fun.
Yes.
Well, so we're kind of in an unprecedented spot. In all my years on the board, I don't believe that we've ever had to, in such a short time frame, facilitate a board voted action on changing our or whatever we call it, our academic calendar, not the board calendar, but the school calendar. So if I'm understanding correctly, I think that we would need to add that as an action item for the board to vote on as a closure for this coming Friday on 11/12. Kaditra, or Donna, do I have that right from a Robert's Rule of Order?
Well, yes, the calendar is something that the board is required to vote on. You voted on in the past. If you're going to amend the calendar, then the board needs to vote. I just want to make sure I'm clear, Scott. You keep saying this coming Friday. It's the 12th, right?
I apologize.
That's okay.
Listen, the work I do, we look so far into the future. Sometimes I just forget where I am. Not this Friday, a week from Friday.
Yes.
Thank you, Donna. That's why you're our legal counsel.
Well, I do what I can. I guess the other question is, are you talking about closing or doing something different? And would this fall in our remote instruction plan or not?
Well, we don't have the educators.
I'm not
We
even
don't have the
sure.
teachers.
I'm not
Sorry,
sure,
Steve.
Donna, with having to care for infants and toddlers, if being able to run a regular remote day or even a synchronous morning with asynchronous later in the day would be something that we could feasibly do. It'd be much like if we have to close for inclement weather, but there's a power outage, so people wouldn't be able to get online. I'm willing to discuss, any options as they've been brought up, but I don't know with any certainty if I can guarantee that these 12 teachers would be able to be live if they're caring for toddlers, or some of them are parents who have guardianship of other small children in a foster setting or a caretaker setting. And while they do have care for them during the day, that would normally mean that they get dropped off at 7:15 and they pick them up at 5 o'clock. I don't know what the needs of the child are in the morning.
And I didn't mean to open, something else. I just wanted to make sure I was
sure.
clear what you were suggesting. But basically, for altering the calendar purposes, yes, the board needs to vote.
Thank you, Donna.
Scott, I don't mean to be rude. I've got 5 minutes. Something I've got to take care of.
Will your exit take us below? I don't think it will.
No, you'll be good.
Okay.
We're good on quorum? Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, Barbara. We're working through it as fast as we can. I'm kind of in the same position. All right, so Kaditra, I think what we need to do before we have a motion to move into closed session.
I have one thing before we move into closed session. I'm sorry. While everyone is on the line, I was going to do this in new business, but I don't want to lose too many people. For the ESSER funds planning, which kind of speaks to what Diane was talking about earlier with the stakeholder survey. I also need to schedule a time for Steve, Scott, and I to have a conversation regarding the intended use of the ESSER funds, and then bring that conversation to the full board. So I would like to do that within the next week or so, if you both are available. So I just wanted to kind of put that out to the whole board that does need to be done. And then we'll have a full conversation, of course, at the December meeting. But I need that survey complete no later than, actually the date is like the 20th, but if you guys can have it done by Friday, that is like perfect. So does anyone have
Friday the
any
19th.
questions?
Friday the 19th, is that which
No,
Friday?
Friday the 5th. I just gave you the
okay.
5th. Mhm.
Sure.
Does anyone have any questions?
Well, let's plan on getting that done by this coming Friday. And Khaditra, you said you were going to resend that
Yep, I'm gonna
Uh,
resend it,
after.
but I just wanted the whole board to hear the spiel of what I had to say regarding the ESSER funds planning that's gonna go forward. I'm done.
Okay, thanks, Khaditra.
Uh-huh.
But as an action item, let's go ahead and add, I guess this would be action item 7H. We can replace the one we removed for the board action on the academic calendar amendment for 11-12. Hopefully I said that accurately enough. All right, so board, we need to have a motion for moving into closed session for the purposes of personnel matters. Can you get a motion from the floor?
So moved.
This is Nick. I second the motion.
Okay.
All right, thank you, guys. So
Scott?
Khaditra, can you move us into closed?
Yep, after I do a quick roll call. Scott?
Sorry, yes, roll call. Yes, yes.
All right, Barbara?
Yes.
Diane? Dixie? Uh-oh, is Dixie still here? No, we lost Dixie. Okay. Nicholas?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Diane, you were on mute.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and put you guys in a breakout room.